The Peloponnesian War was a Greek tragedy, a profound and devastating period in ancient history. It was real, not staged, with consequences that rippled across generations. For nearly 3 decades, from 431 to 404 BC, this brutal conflict unfolded, shaping the destiny of the ancient world. It tore the Hellenic world apart, leaving scars that would never fully heal. This was not a war against Persia or some external foe, but a civil war, Greek against Greek, city-state against city-state, brother against brother. The two great powers, Athens and Sparta, stood as the main antagonists. Each led powerful alliances, drawing in smaller city-states and fueling the flames of war. The war raged across the Greek mainland, the Aegean, its islands becoming battlegrounds, and even Sicily, far from the heart of the conflict, felt its impact. It was total war, a conflict that spared no one, consuming resources, lives, and the very soul of a civilization at its peak, threatening to extinguish the light of the Golden Age. Athens, under Pericles, was in its Golden Age, a time of unprecedented prosperity and innovation, a beacon of culture, philosophy, and democracy, attracting thinkers and artists from across the known world. The Parthenon rose, a testament to Athenian power and artistic genius, Socrates questioned. Challenging conventional wisdom and pushing the boundaries of thought, and playwrights defined drama, exploring the depths of human emotion and the complexities of fate. Athens led the Delian League, a maritime alliance that projected its influence across the Aegean, which became an empire funded by the tribute of its allies, fueling its ambitions and sparking resentment. This new power was dynamic and frightening to those who felt threatened by its rise. Sparta, by contrast, was old, rigid, and militaristic, a society built on discipline and tradition, leading the Peloponnesian League, a coalition of city-states wary of Athenian dominance. They watched Athens with suspicion, their eyes never straying from their rivals' movements, seeing its democracy and empire as threats to their own way of life, and the balance of power in Greece. The clash was inevitable, a collision course set by ambition, fear, and the relentless march of history. The war was not a series of heroic battles, fought with glory and honor, but a long, grinding conflict, a war of attrition that tested the limits of human endurance. Sieges, raids, plagues, betrayals became commonplace, eroding trust and shattering alliances. It tested the limits of endurance and morality, pushing individuals and societies to the brink. Thucydides, an Athenian general and historian, lived through the war and witnessed its horrors firsthand, called it the greatest war of his time, recognizing its profound impact on the Greek world. He wrote not just to record events, but to analyze them with a critical eye, but to understand why men go to war and what it does to them, exploring the psychological and moral dimensions of conflict. His work remains a timeless lesson, offering insights into the nature of power, the dynamics of conflict, and the enduring challenges of human nature. The Peloponnesian War shattered the Golden Age, leaving behind a landscape of ruins and broken dreams. It left Greece forever changed, weakened and vulnerable to new threats. Its lessons echo through history, a reminder of the fragility of civilization and the enduring consequences of war. Why did this devastating war begin? What were the underlying factors that propelled the ancient Greek world into such a prolonged and brutal conflict? Thucydides, the great historian of the age, gives us the answer, offering profound insights into the motivations and events that led to the Peloponnesian War. It was, according to Thucydides, the growth of Athenian power and the fear it caused in Sparta. This dynamic is often referred to as the Thucydides trap. It's a situation where a rising power inevitably challenges an established one, creating an environment ripe for conflict and potential war. But the causes of the Peloponnesian War were far more complex than just a simple power struggle. Fear, honor, and the pursuit of self-interest drove both sides towards the abyss of war. The slide to war wasn't a sudden plunge, but a gradual descent marked by a series of escalating crises, not a single isolated event. It began in the distant city of Epidamnus. There, a seemingly minor local dispute quickly escalated, drawing in larger powers and igniting a wider conflict. Corcyra, seeking protection from its rival Corinth, made a bold move and sought Athenian help. This decision risked triggering a full-scale war with Corinth, a key ally of Sparta. Athens, always tempted by the prospect of bolstering its naval power with Corcyra's fleet, ultimately agreed to a defensive alliance, a move that further inflamed tensions. As Athens and Corinth began to clash directly, tensions rose to a boiling point. Another crisis erupted in the city of Potidæa. Potidæa was a Corinthian colony, yet it was also a subject of the Athenian Empire, a precarious position to be in. Athens, asserting its dominance, demanded Potidæa's complete submission. Emboldened by secret promises of Spartan support, Potidæa revolted against Athenian rule. In response, Athens laid siege to the rebellious city. Now, Athenian and Corinthian troops were openly engaged in war, a clear sign that the situation was spiraling out of control. As tensions escalated, pressure mounted on Sparta to take decisive action. The Peloponnesian League, led by Sparta, convened to discuss the growing crisis. Corinth, with its powerful voice and persuasive arguments, shamed Sparta into action. They issued dire warnings about the insatiable ambition of Athens and its growing empire. The Athenians, in turn, defended their empire and their actions. They attempted to dissuade Sparta, warning them of the devastating consequences of war. But despite the warnings, the die was cast, and the fateful decision was made. Sparta formally declared that Athens had broken the peace, shattering the fragile balance of power. War, it seemed, was now inevitable, a tragic culmination of years of escalating tensions. The entire Greek world braced itself for the coming conflict, a war that would reshape the course of history. Fear, honor, and the relentless pursuit of self-interest had irrevocably set the stage for war. The complex web of alliances was now locked in place, binding the city-states to their respective sides, and so the Peloponnesian War, a conflict that would define an era, began. The first phase of the Peloponnesian War, known as the Archidamian War, was a period of intense conflict and strategic maneuvering. It lasted a full 10 years, a testament to the resilience and determination of both sides. It was fundamentally a clash of strategies. On one side, Sparta boasted an unbeatable army, renowned for its discipline and strength on land. On the other, Athens possessed an unmatched navy, dominating the seas with its superior naval power. Each summer, Sparta invaded Attica, the region surrounding Athens, systematically burning crops and devastating the agricultural landscape, hoping to provoke Athens into a decisive land battle. But Pericles, the Athenian leader, had a radical plan to avoid direct land engagements, instead sheltering the population behind the formidable long walls and relying heavily on the strength and mobility of the Athenian navy. In effect, Athens transformed itself into a fortified island, importing essential supplies and resources by sea, maintaining its lifeline. Simultaneously, the Athenian navy launched raids on the Peloponnesian coast with the strategic aim of wearing down Sparta's resources and resolve. The Athenian citizens struggled with the sight of their lands burning, a painful sacrifice. But Pericles firmly insisted that the true strength of the city resided in its people, its powerful fleet of ships, and its unwavering commitment to democracy. For a while, the strategy proved effective, leading to a prolonged stalemate. However, Pericles hadn't foreseen the emergence of a new and devastating enemy, a deadly disease. The severe overcrowding inside the city walls, as people sought refuge from the Spartan invasions, created the perfect breeding ground and conditions for a devastating plague to spread rapidly. While the Spartans were unable to breach the city's formidable walls, the relentless plague managed to penetrate the defenses with horrifying ease. This unforeseen catastrophe would irrevocably change the course of the war and everything that followed. The carefully laid plans of Pericles, so meticulously crafted, were now about to unravel completely. The true and devastating cost of the war was only just beginning to become apparent. The fate of Athens, once seemingly secure, now hung precariously in the balance. It was nature itself, not the Spartan army, that would strike the first truly devastating blow against the heart of Athens. In 430 BC, disaster struck Athens, not from Sparta, but from a plague. Thucydides described its horrors: fever, coughing, death everywhere. The city descended into chaos, bodies filled the streets, law and order broke down. People lived for the moment, believing the gods had abandoned them. The plague shattered Athens' spirit and society. It killed a third of the population, including Pericles. His death left a leadership vacuum. demagogues rose, more aggressive and reckless than Pericles. The Spartans saw the plague as divine favor and pressed their attacks. Athens survived, but it was changed, angrier, desperate, prone to rash decisions. The golden age was over. The city's unity and confidence were gone. The war's true enemy had come from within. Athens would never be the same. After a decade of brutal fighting, both sides were exhausted. Athens was ravaged by plague. Sparta feared revolt at home. The capture of elite Spartans at Sphacteria shocked Greece and gave Athens leverage. The cautious Nicias negotiated peace in 421 BC, the Peace of Nicias. On paper, it was to last 50 years, restoring the pre-war balance, but the peace was flawed. Key Spartan allies refused to sign, and terms were never fully honored. The Peloponnesian League fractured, suspicion remained. The years of peace were filled with intrigue, proxy wars, and shifting alliances. Alcibiades, a brilliant but reckless Athenian, undermined the treaty, forging new alliances. The Battle of Mantinea in 418 BC restored Spartan dominance. The Peace of Nicias was a pause, not a resolution. The underlying tensions remained. The war's next most catastrophic act was coming. The truce was only an illusion. The fragile peace shattered with Athens' greatest gamble, the Sicilian expedition. In 415 BC, Athens sent a massive force to Sicily, lured by promises of wealth and glory. Alcibiades pushed for invasion. Nicias warned of disaster. The assembly, swept by ambition, approved an enormous force, Nicias and Alcibiades both in command. Just before departure, a religious scandal erupted. Alcibiades was accused, recalled, and defected to Sparta. In Sicily, the campaign stalled. Syracuse, aided by Sparta and Alcibiades' advice, fought back fiercely. Athens sent reinforcements, but it was too late. The Athenian navy was destroyed in the Great Harbour. The army was hunted down. Survivors died in the quarries. Thucydides called it the most costly and finest armament ever sent by a Greek city, completely destroyed. The Sicilian expedition was a catastrophe. Athens lost fleets, soldiers, and hope. The balance of power shifted. The war entered its final brutal phase. Athens would never recover. News of the Sicilian disaster devastated Athens. The empire revolted. Sparta, now with Persian gold, built a navy and blockaded Athens. The final phase, the Ionian War, was fought at sea and in the shadow of starvation. Athens, desperate, melted temple treasures to build new ships. Oligarchs briefly seized power, but democracy returned. For years, Athens fought on, winning surprising victories. Alcibiades even returned to lead the fleet. But in 405 BC, at Aegospotami, the Spartan general Lysander destroyed the last Athenian fleet. The grain supply was cut, starvation loomed. After a bitter siege, Athens surrendered in 404 BC. The Peloponnesian War was over. Greece was exhausted and broken. The age of Athens had ended. Sparta stood victorious, but the cost was immense. The world of the Greek city-states would never be the same. The terms of surrender were harsh. Athens' walls torn down, its empire dissolved, democracy replaced by the 30 tyrants. Sparta celebrated, but the promised freedom for Greece was an illusion. Sparta's rule was harsh, propping up oligarchies with military force. Former allies grew resentful, unity collapsed. Decades of war had drained Greece. Populations shrank, treasuries emptied, trust shattered. The cycle of conflict continued. Soon Sparta was at war with its own allies and Persia. Greece was left weak and divided. This weakness opened the door for Macedon. Philip II learned from Greek warfare, conquered the divided city-states. His son, Alexander, would conquer the Persian Empire. The age of the independent polis was over. The Peloponnesian War was a suicide pact for classical Greece. Its legacy was both triumph and tragedy. Why do we still study the Peloponnesian War? Thucydides' account is a timeless manual on power, politics, and human nature. The Thucydides trap the danger when a rising power challenges an established one remains relevant today. The war shows how fear, honor, and interest drive states to catastrophe. It warns of democracy's fragility. Athens fell as much from within as from without. Wise leadership, informed citizens, and reason are essential for democracy's survival. The war is a deeply human story: ambition, fear, pride, folly. History is shaped by choices, not inevitability. The Peloponnesian War is a tragic, eternal lesson. Its echoes still shape our world.